All right, please be joined this time by Coach Jabari Wilder, one of the best O-line coaches in the state from Lovejoy. Coach, thank you for joining us. Take some time. Look forward to talking to you, man.
Absolutely.
Coach, what are we talking about today? Developing an offensive line in the off season, right? Or all year
Yes.
through the training
Yeah.
program.
Year round, yes.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get out the way, Coach, and let you have it. Thank you. Thanks again for doing this for me.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you for having me. All right. So for me, I think that a lot of offensive line coaches, a lot of coaches in general, head coaches, offensive coordinators, I think they struggle with kind of transitioning from the days where you put the kids that were kind of born to be offensive linemen at that position. They were hungry. They wanted to get after it. They wanted to get after guys' tails. And I think that as we move into the new generation, as recently as now, I just think that it's kind of tough to say that you want kids to come out being that true blue collar offensive lineman that you want. So for me, I've been doing it for about 7 years now. I am an offensive coordinator now, but I'm an O-line coach at heart forever. And I think that this is a great way that I've used in order to create those true nasty offensive linemen that you are used to. So for me, the first thing, it comes to branding. I think that having a name for the offensive line, the Hog Mollies, the Hogs, being in the Hog Pen, all of that is things that have been going on since the beginning of history when it comes to football. But now you have to take it into a new brand when it comes to how are you going to promote that on social media? How are you going to have that as something tangible for them to be able to hold on to throughout the season and the off season as well? So for me, in December, I use that time in order to figure out what is going to be the brand. If it's something that if I'm going to a new school, or if it's a school that I already have, and it's something that I feel like is the identity of that group, I want to make that our brand. I want to turn it into something tangible. I want it to be something that they can hold on to and feel like they can add on to and build throughout the season. And I think that's something that even if you're not coaching offensive line, that's something that you can move forward with, even having as even an offensive unit, but have something that they feel like is their brand. When you come into this new age, they have to have something that they think is visible, tangible, they can touch it, they can see it, and it's theirs. And when you allow it to have it, when you allow them to have it and think that it's theirs, they'll add on the bricks to the house that you have. You add the foundation, and they will have the bricks where they add on to the house that you're going to have in order to establish for the rest of the season. So for me, when I got to Griffin, the brand was the Great Wall of Griffin. When I got there, it was traditionally known, they were known for having receivers, known for having skilled guys, known for having really nasty defensive linemen, but offensive line was not given a lot of attention at Griffin. So the first thing that we said with the Great Wall of Griffin, we're coming to protect what is known as one of the most storied programs in the state of Georgia. And it starts in the offensive line. So I made them feel like, hey, every brick that you add comes to the Great Wall of Griffin. So this, when I put the edit out, it started out, these were the first three kids that were going to be on the edit. And I told them you had to earn your way to get onto the edit. You had to earn your way to be a part of the Great Wall of Griffin and get that publication. And when we got to it, I had about 6, 7 guys that felt like they had earned their way on to having the edits, being a part of the Great Wall of Griffin. And it became a thing to where when people saw me, they knew the Great Wall of Griffin. And when before, Griffin was not promoted for having these traditional nasty offensive lines. So right here is another edit, and it was just promoting the Great Wall of Griffin. Another edit where I added faces to it as the season went by, or as we were about to go into the season, and the kids were excited about it. When we were training, they were thinking about the Great Wall of Griffin. Every single time that I got on them, every up down that they did in their minds, it was for the purpose of upholding the standard for the Great Wall of Griffin. So it assisted me a lot in not having to reiterate to them the why. The why is our brand. The why is what we're doing it for, and that's for each other, and that's for the Great Wall of Griffin and who we are. When I got to Lovejoy, I had another mantra that I had RTABF, and then we moved it into no limit. So when I got there, a lot of the offensive linemen, I felt like they were really afraid to push their limits. They were really afraid to empty the tank. They wanted to do just enough. So for me, I started promoting the No Limit brand. It's cool. It's trendy. Right here is a album cover that I made for my center. He's real flashy. He loves to wear stuff in school. So I needed him to be a leader for me coming into the season. And one thing that helped me was getting him invested into No Limit. And he was very invested into it. He was invested into emptying his tank every time he stepped on the field. And he was very invested in not believing in any limits on him when it came and going to the season. So that helped me in general. And when I'm talking about the why for an offensive line, it helped me because I created a leader in him through him wanting to be a part of that brand. He wanted to develop the brand at Lovejoy High School of being a part of No Limit. So I think branding first, when you have that time in December, the short time where you played your last game, hopefully you've gotten to the championship and you get to January, I think you need to utilize that time. How are you going to build your brand? What is your brand? And how can you push it forward? How can you add bricks onto it? So for me in training, I split training for me offensive line wise into 3 different tasks for me. I have off-season mental, interpersonal tasks. I have physical tasks, and then I have tasks for myself to make sure that everything comes together, the whole picture comes together. So for the beginning of off-season mental, interpersonal tasks, the number one thing that I make sure that I start off with is understanding the personalities of my kids and their pressure points. I'm trying to understand what pushes each kid to go to another level. I talked about No Limit. I talked about the brand, but I got to figure out how can I identify each one of their personalities? How can it blend together and what pushes them? When you develop that, it allows you in training to now know what is their limit mentally. How far can you push them? Where can you begin? Where can you start? I'm not about wasting time. I'm not about yelling at kids just to yell at them. I'm trying to figure out what are their pressure points, what pushes each particular kid. And it takes time as you're training. But as we come together, that's why you begin in January, you go throughout the season, you know exactly what pushes kids. There's no question marks when it comes to your center on how to talk to them, on how to talk to your guard, because you may not be able to talk to him the way that you can talk to your right tackle. But in August, that's something that you learned in January. So you don't even have those issues. I rarely have an issue of not knowing a kid, his mentality wise, and what can he handle, what pressure points push him to maximize his potential on the field. I know every button to push. I know everything to get that kid going. So also when you take that, you also want to use that mentality of, like I said, developing a blue collar offensive line mentality. How can you do it? You use these moments in the weight room, outside, on the bags. How can I utilize every single second I have to get them to buy into being a blue collar athlete, to being bought into having no glory, which we know offensive linemen have zero glory. Nobody cares about your names. But how can I get you cool with being the most known unknown? I want you to aim for that. I want you to be cool with being behind the scenes. I want you to be cool with knowing that your struggle is common, is unique amongst each other, and how can you buy into it? So developing the mental and interpersonal task is first. It's important. You have to establish it. You have to attack it immediately, or whatever you're going to do physically, whatever you're going to get them physically and up to do, if it's not here mentally, it doesn't matter. If you haven't developed those interpersonal tasks for yourself, develop them amongst your group, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You can attempt to train and push them as hard as you want to, but if you have not front loaded with establishing what are these kids' pressure points, what motivates my kids, how can I get this to be the mentality of the group as one, then it doesn't matter how hard you're going to train them. It doesn't matter how hard you're going to push them. And even if you have an offensive line of 6'5" and above and 330, if you haven't taken time to establish the mentality as a group and understand them as individuals, then it doesn't matter. It's not going to be effective. You're going to be very frustrated. You're going to have a lot of moments where you're wondering why guys aren't pushing guys, but we got to look farther than the physical, and you got to start mentally. So for there, that's the very first step that I begin with the task for my group. Next, as I'm going through the mental task in the off season, I'm also talking about my physical tasks. These kids that I coach, they know that I'm always talking about pressure to pressure, every movement, force through the ground. I want to be able to create tension and resistance in every single movement that we have. I don't want it to be simple. I don't want it to be a point where anything feels easy. I want tension and resistance every movement, every opportunity that we get. And when I'm going through that, the kids know that. To me, it's called simulated adversity. They physically feel it. They mentally feel it. I want it to be in all the main physical points that I want it to be on: quads, shoulders, bis, and tries. I feel like all of those things create a good offensive line. If you can create tension amongst those physical groups right there, those body groups, then you are going to have a lot of success is understanding what type of training you can go ahead and dive into. And you can get as crazy as you want, but you got to create tension amongst those body groups. And then also, when you have the resistance, it goes into mental and emotional as well, because that comes with being an offensive lineman. I feel like we have the most mental and emotional strain at times because we have the hardest job. We have to get guys moving every single play, and you know that you're not going to get acknowledged for it. You know that. So you have to create the resistance physically now. The last one is task for me. I feel like through your training, you have to make this feel like a unique experience for your offensive line. And you also have to use it in order to understand what scheme you can use in August. When I'm in May, when I'm in April, based off of my training, based off of how these kids have grown, based off of the skills they have obtained going into spring ball, I already know what run schemes fit my guys. Based off of the mentality that we have developed, based off of the leadership that I have developed, I already know what run schemes fit the mentality of the offensive line group that I have. If it's been one of those great off seasons like I had last year, then we can get into gap scheme, because I know that even though we're a little undersized, we are moving guys. We have developed a lot of quad tension, a lot of ability to move guys from A to B. We've been able to create a lot of force with our quads immediately. And I know that I can go into, we're going to have a lot of gap scheme going on, because up front, we're going to be able to do it. Now, if I come into an offseason where that hasn't really been working, and I haven't seen a lot of explosion, I haven't seen a lot of force through the ground, then we may go through a few zone schemes. I'm gonna have to rely on my running backs to make a few more decisions. We're gonna have to be a little bit more lateral with the schemes. Those are things that you come into the spring knowing, based off of the amount of time that you have put into training your offensive line. Also, one thing I'm big about is leadership and hierarchy. I want the guys who are leaders of my group to rise amongst the ashes while we're training. I want the hierarchy to be developed between the guys who are separating themselves and the guys that aren't quite there yet. Because if I'm constantly pushing the guys that are right there up top in the hierarchy, the guys that aren't quite there yet, they want to reach it. And usually the guys are higher in the hierarchy are your upperclassmen. So when they leave, your guys who weren't quite there yet are already, they're ready to make the move. They're ready to get there. They're ready to dominate because they've seen it, they've watched it, and all the doubts are eliminated. I know all the factors that could possibly affect my scheme, that could possibly affect my offensive line group. I know all of those things by the time I get to May. And then by the time I get from May to August, I'm fine-tuning everything. By the time I get into the actual season, I rarely have any surprises in the season when it comes to my guys. It's very rare. I know what the scheme that was going to be successful. I pretty much know it based off of the training. I know what guys are going to be my leaders. I know what guys are still getting there, what guys aren't ready to play just yet, but around game 5 or 6, they're going to be ready. These are things that I know in advance because of the training and the tasks that I have set out for myself as an offensive line coach from January going into May. So next, I'll kind of go into a few examples of kind of the things that we do in training. We do a whole lot. If you came by any places that I've been to, we do a lot of things. But see, these are some of the kind of EDD things that I do as we establish through our training from January, reaching kind of into the summertime. So first, have here weighted or unweighted crossover step-ups. You can use the benches, or you can use some plyo boxes. It's kind of up to you. But right here, I want them to get used to the motion of crossing over and planting. Same that we would do when we're pulling. I want them to get used to it. I had a guy right here in the middle. He was struggling with it. This is January right here. Struggling with the crossover and planting, struggling with keeping his hands on the tiles with his feet. But like I said, this is January, so this is something that I know that I can develop on and work on. And I know that coming into May, he's going to be a lot better puller just from this simple movement right here. And I add 45 to it as well. So when you look at that, that's a simple movement that I'm doing in January. The kids have been out. They've been eating a lot. But this is a simple movement that I want to get their bodies start thinking about muscle memory when it comes to pulling. Next, I have here 0 skips. So same motion. They went through their crossover steps, weighted, unweighted. Now we go into 0 skips. So you're on the ground, get a pull from the ground, 0. I want them to come up. I want to see force through the ground. I want you to put your body in resistance where it's a lot of struggle coming when you're trying to pull. You're trying to force that knee up. Normally, you're already in a stance. You can pull, easy transition. Here, 0 skips. Your body has to go fight or flight right now to get you off of the ground. And that's what I'm trying to generate for his body. Coming up, 0 skips again, a bigger guy, 300-pounder. 300 pounds coming off the ground, trying to skip, pull, and still run effectively to get to his target. That's what it is right here. I know if I can get him successfully through 0 skips, right here, pulling from his 3-point stance, 2-point stance is easy. And like I said, this is still in January. This is transitioning from already doing his weighted and unweighted step overs over the bench or the plyo boxes. And I'll show it one more time. Simple drill, easy drill. If you have a lot of guys that struggle with bending, this is going to help. Force them to bend, force that weight through the ground, get yourself up, go 100 miles per hour, get to your target. All right, so here, working, now I'm transitioning into building a little bit more quad fatigue. So here, it's a little bit of competition. Sometimes the technique wavers a little bit, but I kind of want to see who's going to push themselves. I'll pick a guy right here. This guy right here was a junior for me. He was a leader of the group. This guy right here was one of those guys who was in between the pack. I kind of want to push and see how can he match up to this guy right here. So it's just simple suicides, building quad tension. I have my bag set up, and we'll go through it about 3 times. I kind of want to see how far can the guy push himself. Building that quad tension. Simple drill, a little bit of competition, but I want to see if this guy that's in black can keep up with a guy that's already established himself as a leader. Already been around, kind of know what's going on. I want to see, can he establish himself? Can he fight his fatigue when it comes to competition? And like I said, it builds quad tension. I want force through the ground. I want powerful quads from my offensive line. Next, we transition into some more athletic movements. Here, I want to see body control. So they're hopping through the bags. Force up, hips through the bag, stopping your body on the dime, controlling your quads. This is what you're going to see in this drill right here. Stop on a dime, stay in a squat position, control your body as a big guy, be an athlete. You have your elbows tight, shoot your hips through your man, and plant. Control your body. Building more quad tension, as I was talking about. I want powerful quads from my offensive lineman. How do I build it? From having resistance. My big guy right here ended up starting 10 games for me at center. Pressing himself, establishing some quad tension, making powerful movements through the ground. Next, same thing. Quad tension. Hold it, build it up, control. But now we aren't building up, we aren't loading. We're starting from 0 each time, a little bit different from the first one. Straight hop, stay from your planted squatted position, build the tension, develop some force through the ground, pressure to pressure. I want you to be athletes. I want you to be able to bend. As you go through this drill, you'll see your offensive lineman begin to jump higher and higher. That lets you know that the quad tension is working. There's more power being developed in the lower body from the ground up. Simple drill, simple thing that you can use to build some quad tension and develop more force through the ground. Get guys moving. Get their bodies used to getting their weight up and going. Fight or flight. Build it now. Now I transition. We're kind of in the march area right here. We got a heel now. Same drill, but I want to create more tension, more resistance. Show me that you have some body control doing the same drill, going uphill now. So you see here, body control, hips forward through the man, and I want him to plant. Control his body, elbows tight. I want you to be controlled madness. That's what I want to see. And he did a great job of it. This is not an easy drill. It's simple, but it's not easy. Builds a lot of tension in the quads. You're going to have a lot of complaining from your offensive line, but it's going to work in the benefit of moving guys forward. Hips forward, nothing backwards, force through the ground, pressure to pressure. Right here, you have the whole group doing the same drill here. Plant, explode, hip forward, big chest. The same thing that you're teaching him when you're inside of the chute are the same skills that you can build with him right here uphill. You're creating the resistance already. I also have my bands. I'll sometimes put bands behind them. Have to go uphill and fight the bands as well. This helps me build quad tension. This helps me get my guys stronger without us kind of it's kind of me cheating some time aside from being in the weight room. It's kind of cheating some time where I can build some strength out on the field too, but also build them some skills that'll transfer and to get a guy moving off of the line of scrimmage. Right here is a drill that my friend Christian Honeycutt, is over at Gainesville. I kind of was talking to him about increasing striking. I wanted to figure out what was the best way that I could get my guys to strike a little harder. And I saw him do it. This is at Collins Hill right here. I saw him do it kind of first of a variation. You got a band behind his back. It's right in the elbows, keeping his elbows tight. He explodes into the bag, gives you some pressure points with his feet, then moves on to the next bag. Creates a lot of tension in his shoulders, keeping his elbows tight. The more tension that we can create in his shoulders and his elbows, the more explosive he's going to be in August when he's actually exploding his hands into a man without the band. Same thing here at Lovejoy. Here, press, fight through the resistance of the band right here. Foot fire, move forward. He'll whistle, move forward, explode, press. Fight the band. So right here, and I'll go back real quick. I want to see him fight through the resistance of that band that's keeping his elbows tight. It's all about creating that muscle memory for resistance striking for me. If he's able to fight through this, we're starting in March. We go through this from March to about May. Then his strike, when we're actually setting in a pass set, I've seen some guys knock some guys 2 yards, a yard back, just based off of this resistance striking alone. And then next, what I fell in love with for striking is landmine press. At Lovejoy, it's a staple. At Griffin, it was a staple. It's a full body workout for us. For all my linemen, it has been so beneficial with striking and quad tension at the same time. It's been ridiculous. We load this bar up. We compete with it. We put 4 or 5 plates on at a time, and I have my guys squat and explode up. The overall goal is to keep your elbows tight, throw the plates through the wall. That's what you're going to hear at Lovejoy when you hear landmine press day. Squat, press the plate through the wall. Resistance. I know that most guys aren't going to be giving you this much resistance when you're going against a guy in the game. I know that. I got 4 plates right there. Moving on to the next. This guy has 2 plates. I know that most guys aren't going to be striking you and giving you that much resistance when you're trying to strike them. But I have to generate resistance. I have to generate adversity. A lot of guys in landmine press alone, I have improved a lot with my guys striking and having quad tension with landmine press alone. And that right there is kind of the main drills that I feel like are staples for us. And I'm good to go.
Coach, sorry, hit the button there. Coach, that was awesome, man. I've heard a lot of good things about you, and I got to see some of them today. What you guys do, everybody now you're the OC too, and everybody thinks you're just out there dialing up some ball plays, and yeah, that's part of it. But it's really these type things when nobody's looking that can separate you now. And I feel like so many people will watch these clinics and do things all off season, only worried about trying to scheme up when the reality is building force, building better athletes is always going to be a better deal. So what's something, I'll ask you a question. I know this ain't really a podcast, but what's something you learned as a coordinator that you think was different maybe from what you thought as an O-line coach? Because the O-line coach to play caller mode or the coordinator is it's usually either very successful or very unsuccessful because it is kind of two different things, right?
Yeah.
So what's something you've learned or maybe something you have advice, maybe a better way to say that is what advice would you have for somebody assuming those responsibilities right now that's an O-line coach moving into looking at the whole offense more?
Offensive line coach, I think if you're transitioning to being an offense coordinator, you are used to in practice looking at your five guys and you are locked in on them as much as you can possibly be. I know in every place I've been into, all those five guys are in a world of their own for me, every school that I've been to. So for me, looking at the bigger picture, understanding how to coach different positions, it was hard for me to transition into that first year because I wanted to coach my quarterback like he was a guard. I wanted my receiver to respond to the way I delivered as if he was a center and a hard-nosed left tackle. So for you as an offensive lineman, an offensive line coach, you got to understand that each position is coached a lot different. That picture is very big outside of the offensive line. There are a lot of things that you can say and approach to an offensive lineman that you cannot bring to a quarterback. And I think that first year, I think I didn't understand that fully. I'm a real hard-nosed guy, so I think that you really got to challenge yourself to change your delivery from offensive line to the bigger picture, but also know how to transition in and out of it.
Right. And see, that was one of my question because what I've seen is the offensive line coaches are typically very detail-oriented, very hardworking, very disciplined. And in some cases, that carries them into being phenomenal offensive coordinators or play callers. And in some cases, it's almost detrimental because they don't quite understand that the running backs, they just get that thing and jump cut and go. I mean, they don't need all that technical talk, And you see both. And I think it's very important to be self-aware. But I also don't like hearing about people younger guys that don't want to be maybe an O-line coach if they think it'll pigeonhole them from getting a chance to be the play caller or the head coach or whatever. So O-line coach, most important assistant coach on the field, bud. I'll say that publicly, and no doubt. But I do like it when there's guys like you who've been able to also expand and be able to do it at a broader level. And one day you're going to be on the other podcast as the head coach. So looking forward to that day too, bud. You've done a good job, man. If I can ever help you in any way, please let me know, really.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, take care, Coach. Good to see you.
All right, take care. Good to see you as well.